D&D, the Draconomancy
campaign, each of us has a deity. Now, the reason for the deities is you need to... hang on, my microphone's got a bit weird there. There we go. For the deities, you have like your own deity that you have to worship and you get piety points. Now, here's the thing. My deity, her favoured beast is the Hydra, so I cannot damage this or kill it, or I lose piety points. So when we go to face the Hydra, I'm literally saying to them, guys, can we actually find a way not to kill it? Because, you know, like, relocate it or something, because this is against my god. And they're like, but my god's fine with this, though. It's like, and we're just like, but I need to do this for my god. So we arrive to the Hydra and find it's in a dam. It decides to dam off a river. And as I look, I notice certain two main things. That there's a weak spot in the dam, and that the Hydra is extremely aggressive because it's going to lay an egg. It hasn't laid an egg yet, but it's going to. So, we decide to lure it over towards us. Now, we're in 3 different groups right now. Me and Grexes are in the riverbed, right? Soltrum and an NPC are on like the side where it's, you know, like on the pathway next to the river. And Dennis decides to go into the water, into the lake behind the Hydra. Dennis discovers that there's actually a bag of holding with a Hydra egg. So, we basically come to the assumption that, well, you know, in metagaming we come to the assumption that maybe someone placed an egg there and then they just hatched and then, you know, that's all we assume. Like, none of us except Dennis know about the Hydra egg inside. So, you know, and I'm like that in metagaming, like, I want the egg because I want to raise it, because I want a pet Hydra. And they're like, ah. But anyway, so what happens is the Hydra notices me and Grexes and attempts to try to attack us. The NPC decides to throw a spear and it does nothing to the Hydra whatsoever. It shatters on the Hydra scales. Meanwhile, Grexes decides to grab a massive boulder, his size, and throw it at the Hydra. Bear in mind he has the plus strength from the Belt of Storm Giant strength. So he knocks out one of the heads in an instant. The Hydra decides to react by grabbing the same rock and throwing it back at him to try and, you know, damage him. He successfully catches it and throws it right back at the Hydra and knocks out a second head. So 2 of the 5 heads are now unconscious, which is quite hilarious because we're all just giggling about it. Then Soltrum decides that he wants to try and attack it with a crossbow. I can't do anything because it's, you know, my deity's favourite beast. So Soltrum decides to try and shoot it with a crossbow, and he gets stung in the arm by a wasp and accidentally shoots the weak part of the dam. Yeah, and what happens is, let's just say a very strange sort of event, because Dennis decided to put a charm on the Hydra that makes it not hungry for human flesh. I didn't know this and transformed into a shark because, well, the dam's coming towards us. Now, when the dam water starts flooding towards us, Grexy is about to run off. I literally look at him and say, quickly, jump on my back, I'll turn into a shark. He jumps on my back, I fail a strength saving throw, and the funny part is, I start sinking into the actual riverbed before the water arrives. So I transform into the shark. Grexy is on top of me, but I'm stuck in the actual sand. Well, not sand, but the riverbed bottom part, silt or something like that. And then the water starts rushing over me, I'm like, whoa! So Grexy decides to grab me because he realises that this Hydra seems to have some major interest in me, as if it's wanting to eat me, because of the charm, but none of us know it. So he grabs me and flings me over to the other side of the frickin' dam. I managed to successfully land in there and not die. I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to swim to the edge and then turn back to human form, and I decide to do that, only for the river to suck me back in, through to the river, straight back towards the Hydra, and I'm like, ah, shit. I turn back to human form to try and avoid the Hydra trying to get me, and Grexy's manages to save me by holding on to me while his axe is embedded into the silt. So the Hydra is washed away, and we successfully managed to get it to, you know, away from the village, because as the water just carries it away. So in return, they say, thanks, we know you didn't kill it, but you did move it away, so you have our gratitude. Like, okay, we did a good job, and we got paid for it. Then they tell us the information we need to know. I managed to set out a map saying how we can actually, you know, catch up to them during the next day, because they're planning, because after they fix their boat, they're going to leave to go to another location, but they won't be able to leave until morning. So we decide, okay, here's the plan, here's where we're going to go, so we've got time to spare in the meantime. So me, Saltram, and Grexys decide to go to a tavern. Dennis decides to do some other stuff in the meantime, and here comes one of the funniest things we've ever done. Now, we get drunk, and Saltram decides that because of a wasp stinging him to thwart his crossbow skills, he decides to say that there's actually a wasp overlord that wants to try and take over the world, and that we should stop him, and he is the only one that can do this. Now, because of this constant mentioning of wasp overlord, and all of us being drunk, I had to do a constitution save, and I failed badly, so I was a 1. So anytime Saltram or anyone else mentioned the word wasp, I would involuntarily vomit. And this lasted for about, like, all night, I'm guessing, in the game. Now, this continued for a while. Anytime someone mentioned the word wasp, I was like, blah, blah, blah. Right? And meanwhile, I'm still drunk, so I decide to start flirting with a coat rack, because what else are you supposed to flirt with when you're drunk? Now, I guess to the point where I managed to actually just fall asleep, and I'm just like unconscious, like, okay, I'm just sleeping here now. And Grexys decides to try a drink that... Well, actually no, Saltram first. Saltram decides to try a drink which is composed of giant spider venom and orange juice, and starts hallucinating. Now, this hallucination was he was hallucinating that there was actually a wasp overlord trying to kill him, and he was successfully fighting it off, and then decided to fire a fire breath. Now, the rest of us, specifically Grexys, who was still actually sober because he can handle his drink a lot better than us, that sees that Saltram is actually just attacking the air and he's about to breathe fire. Grexys grabs him, throws him out the window, and Saltram breathes fire outside, like into the sky. And we're like, okay, that was close. And Grexys decides, you know what, I'm gonna have a drink too. What was it that he had? The bartender gives him the exact same drink. Saltram is still outside, just basically just looking up at the sky, just going, wasp overlord. I'm vomiting in my sleep, because anytime someone mentions it, even when I'm unconscious, I do it. So then Grexys takes it. He starts seeing like a female Leonin flirting with him. He's like, come Grexys, let us slay the mightiest beast together. And then sees what can only be described as a yellow dragon challenging him. Grexys says, I will face you, beast. And then turns out that the dragon, instead of breathing fire, breathed mashed potato. Now, to the rest of us, because I was now awake at this point, saw Saltram throw a plate of mashed potatoes on Grexy's face to wake him up. And yeah, it was definitely quite funny, just that whole scene there. And it turns out Grexy's like, wait, where's my axe? Turns out he actually switched the battle axe with the coat rack. Now, he was flirting with the coat rack, and for some reason his axe now had coats and hats on top of it. So we obviously switched them back over, and that was a weird scenario. So at this point, it is now daytime, because we all sobered up, and luckily I've done a constitution save, so I don't vomit anytime someone mentions the word wasp again. So now we decide, alright, well, we're all conscious again, it's morning, we're gonna go get a ship. So we get onto this dock, find that the ship has already left, so we have our own. We've got the NPC ship, and we've got Dennis's ship. So I jump onto the ship with Dennis, Saltram and Grexys jump onto the ship with the NPCs. Now we go into two different groups, and as we're sailing, me and Dennis notice that there's actually a ship nearby on its own. And we notice there's a lot of sharks for some reason. I also noticed that there's actually land-based animal meat in the water, meaning someone has definitely moved it there. Because, you know, what deer or something like that is going to go into the sea and go, oh, it's a great day for a swim with sharks. So, we do the only sensible thing to do, and swim into the shark-infested waters, onto the boat, to see what exactly is going on. Luckily, the sharks don't like going near Dennis because of him being the son of a god of the sea. Now, we jump on, we're hanging onto the side of the ship, and we're like, okay, there's like how many people here? And then we can hear the voice, and we're like, okay, there's way too many up there. So Dennis summons a gust of wind that blows off 8 of the actual soldiers into the shark-infested waters, bear in mind, in heavy armour. Or medium armour, I can't remember, but either way, it's not a pretty sight. He jumps onto the ship and starts grabbing people, yelling, "What are you guys doing here?" When the first few don't answer, he literally just flings them right off board if they don't answer him. He gets an answer from another one saying, like, "Oh yeah, we're here for bait because we're here to bait you guys out," and then he literally throws them right off. And the others decide, you know what, it's better just to suffer this fate here rather than get killed by this guy. They all jump off board. We get inside the ship and find that there's actually a dragonborn that we were looking for. I think his name was Aham or something. And then we notice that as the sun is setting, there is actually a dragon coming towards us. We notice it, and it turns out it's a white dragon. That's right, the one that Grexes was battling at one point. Oh boy, I bet you can see what's going to happen here. So this dragon decides to fly towards me and Dennis. Grexes and Soltrum don't notice what's going on until they see the dragon in the distance, like, oh shit, the dragon's over there, we've got to help him. So they decide to try to start coming towards us. Meanwhile, me and Dennis are stuck with this dragon coming towards us. Dennis decides that as this dragon's about to attack us, throws like a bow and arrow, like shoots a bow and arrow at him, plus the strength modifier literally damages, like shoots right through the fucking side of the dragon. And when the dragon comes close enough to try and breathe ice, literally jumps up, grabs the dragon's face, punches it, and puts him down into the ground, into the water. The ice just barely missing the ship, like literally just covering the sides of the ship. And then uses lightning, because he's got like a thunder ability, or spell. And he does extra damage because he's in the water, because the DM says like if you do lightning based attacks in water or enemies that are submerged, it does an extra damage. So basically it's to the point where this dragon has lost now half of its health just from this one attack, like 2 attacks. So he decides to knock Dennis off and try and fly away. Dennis jumps back on the ship and notices there's nothing he can throw at the dragon except for me. He decides to grab me and throw me right at the dragon like a javelin. I end up flying right towards it. I've got my scimitar and my fucking dagger out. I'm like, okay, shit. Grab onto the side and manage to actually stab my scimitar into its side to actually hold on. I'm like, I don't like this. The dragon's looking at me like, what the fuck? He tries to shake me off. Dennis notices he also has another thing he can throw. His ship. Now, what he has is this little box I've said before that can turn into a ship. So he decides to throw this and says, let's set sail, and it turns into a full-on galleon, like the size of a dragon, sort of thing. And what happens is the dumbest thing ever, where the dragon looks behind itself to see this ship flying right towards it, and this gave Dennis the nickname of it being called the Flying Dutchman, and basically whacks right into the dragon. Now, the damage of the dragon's health is gone. Like, the dragon is essentially knocked down. He cannot fly anymore, and I'm dead. The impact of this ship has literally killed me. I am dead in the water, floating there, near shark-infested waters, but luckily Dennis is nearby, so the shark's like, no, we ain't touching that one. So then, yeah, and the funny part is, like, for Soltrum and Grexes, and even the main antagonist, who's actually watching this via a crystal ball, are watching in awe and horror as this ship came out of nowhere, flying towards a dragon just to knock it down into the ocean. You can tell that's definitely a fun idea for, like, imagine an antagonist just like, oh crap, how am I going to die by this party? Shit. So then Dennis manages to grab me out of the water, revive me to the point where I'm just sitting there, just like, my bones are in complete agony. Like, I can't move because of the amount of damage I've just sustained in that one attack. And then ties the dragon to the ship. Literally, the dragon's like too afraid to even leave anyways. Like, it's like, I'm gonna die here, I'm gonna die by these guys, oh god. So then we return back to the actual port, because, you know, we've completed, like, what we needed. We needed to save this dragonborn, and we've also got the white dragon. So we return back to the port. I'm taken to the infirmary area, because obviously I cannot frickin' move at all. And yeah, Grexy's looks at the White Dragon, stares at him, and just looks at him saying, next time we battle, it better be a fair one. No ice magic. And the dragon's like that, staring at him angry. He's like, oh, you'll get your fair battle. And then literally, we just see something funny where, like, Dennis just looks at the dragon and just says, boat. And the dragon actually shivers in fear. He's like, looks at him, he's like, oh god. And that's where we ended the session. And so far, it's literally coming up. This Thursday is the next session. So I cannot wait to see what kind of mayhem we get up to, and I'm actually loving this campaign a lot. So to anyone that plays D&D out there, it is so much more fun because like this is literally the most fun in a D&D campaign I've ever had in my life. So any DMs out there, if you make stuff like this happen, it literally makes so many people happy. But anyway, that's the video. Hopefully you enjoyed. I'm looking forward to doing more D&D stuff. I'm actually thinking about doing some campaigns myself, like DMing. Like a one-piece one, like how Tekking, Lost Paws, and all that lot are actually making their own one, and it's kind of interesting to watch. I've already got the own system set up for that one. And I was also thinking of a horror comedy one, so like sort of like Scary Movie. But hopefully you guys enjoyed. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye!